Hey, Sabir, welcome to the 2x e-commerce podcast.
It's a pleasure being here, and thank you for inviting me to be on the show.
Amazing. I'm like super excited about this one because just having reviewed the amount of work and contribution you've put into e-commerce, it would be a disservice to the audience not to give you a platform to sort of, tell your story. And with that in mind, your story spans well beyond 20 years in e-commerce and probably before. So could you give us how it all started? How did you get into this industry? And go for it, please.
So I would say that it's the power of yes, and saying the right yes throughout my life, right? And it started out when I was literally 6 years old. My elder brother was 9 years old, and the two of us were gifted a Commodore 64. And after you play, nowadays you get Nintendo, you cannot really do computing on it, right? But back then, you wanted to play a game, you had to buy an Atari or a I'm very old school, so Commodore 64, something like that. And then you would load up the game and you would play with it. But after a while, you playing with it, you get bored. We got bored, and then we went through the box and we found the basic programming book, right? So we said, okay, let's see what it does. We started playing around with it. Whatever it told us to do, we did. Poke 53280, comma 15. That actually changes the foreground, and then if you did 81, it would change the background. And then we started writing all this test code that was given to us in that programmer's guide, right? Because at that time, whenever you bought a computer, it came with a book that actually taught you how to code, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we started coding, and then the very first thing I remember at the age of 6 that we created was learning to play piano on a computer. Mind you, I had no idea how to play piano at that time. So we learned what piano was and what the notes were and stuff like that. And then we took that and we put it into Commodore 64 program. We actually created a piano program that when you use the keyboard on your on Commodore 64, it actually was acting like a piano for you. So that was our very first application that we wrote, and then later on, fast forward through that year, by the time we figured out how to move things around, and then we actually ended up writing a game together at that age. So this just went on for a while. We kept on growing up, and our dad used to tell his friends that his kids know how to use computers. So we would be asked to go and help these, I guess, businesses to help them with their computer needs and stuff like that. And the reward was some sort of a toy or something that we were getting at that time because we were young kids, and we had not figured out how to monetize our skill set at that time. There was no such word at that time. You just helped out your dad's friends. And kind of fast forward get to college. I wanted to actually become a neurosurgeon in the medical field. So I had no intention of getting into computers or anything. My passion was neurosurgery because that was the highest thing and the hardest thing to achieve. Going to college, I find out that it's going to take me 12 to 14, 16 years before I can do any kind of surgery. I decide that I don't want to do that. And then I speak to a guidance counselor who tells me, oh, so what's your interest? So I said, oh, I've been coding and programming since I was a child. I really know how to do that. Oh, they said, oh, that's interesting. Our college, university offers a computer science degree, but you have to major in like physics, mathematics, and computer science in order to get your computer science degree at that time. So I go through it, pass with flying colors, do really well. Now I get into the job market. Actually, I in my sophomore year, I got hired as a intern, and then that internship within 2 weeks turned into a part-time job because the owner of the company realized that I was not a regular intern, and they would lose me if they don't change me over to this paid position. So I became a computer scientist from the sophomore year in my college, and then continued writing a ton of code. In the early part of my life, I was a computer scientist, written millions and millions of lines of code, Macy's.com, TheStreet.com, Tommy.com, Perialis.com, VitaminShop.com. There are so many of these sites, including mutual fund companies, the first of its kind, that offered mutual fund access through a website in the early days of the internet. I actually built a lot of that. So as a coder, that's what I did. Engineered all those sites and stuff like that. And then fast forward to the .com era. That's what I was doing. A lot of it. I was literally launching 2 or 3 businesses every 6 weeks to 12 weeks. Literally, I was known as the guy you hire to launch your .com, right?
Mm.
So then from there, an opportunity came up in my history, and that was the vitamin shop. And I think, to me, that was my pivotal point. At that time, I was an engineer, a hacker. I was Scotty on Star Trek, so that's who people knew me as in that part of my life. But at Vitamin Shop, through Jeff Horowitz, who's the founder of Vitamin Shop, through his network came in access to me, and said, "Oh, you got to hire this guy. He can help." At that time at Vitamin Shop, what had happened was Vitamin Shop, the parent company, had spun off VitaminShop.com into NASDAQ, and it had gone public. And after going public, just like a lot of other .coms in the .com era, it went bust, right? So it went bankrupt. And then the parent company went into the bankruptcy court, bought all the assets. And then once they bought the assets back, they needed somebody to actually now revive this channel and run it, right? So through the networks came to know me and stuff like that. So I got involved, and I started to, like, literally, he had bought the assets, put it on the shelf. When I say shelf, I mean literally warehouse shelf. And at that time I didn't have any team because I was the first one. So I started moving these servers, and literally, I'm showing you on the camera, this part of my finger was cut because as I was lifting the server, these servers were very heavy.
Mm.
As I was lifting it, it actually cut through the bone to the bone. So I literally, like, bled, moving these servers and putting them together, and kind of starting the stuff up while building the team up also to help me, the different types of engineers and web designers and stuff like that I needed on the team to kind of build it up. So I do this, and now the site is up and we're ready to go. I talk to Jeff. I say, "Hey, Jeff, who do I need to talk to get this going from a revenue standpoint, like bring traffic and stuff like that?" He goes like, "What do you mean? I thought it was you." I said, "No, I'm an engineer." I sounded like, Scotty talking to Kirk,
Mhm.
I'm an engineer. I'm not a doctor, So that's what I say to him. He goes like, "No, I've seen you do a lot of things. I think I can help you, but I want you to be the one running this channel." I said, "Let me remind you, I have taken a lot of physics, math, and computer science. The only business course I took was Economics 101 and Accounting 101. That's it. I don't know anything about marketing." So he says, "Oh, don't worry about it. You can catch up on that kind of stuff, and I can help you learn how to sell vitamins, and that would be it, right?" So that's when then I started to, like, he was investing time with me, and then what I would do on the weekends is I would go to Barnes and Noble. At that time, Amazon was a young company at that time, so I would go to a Barnes and Noble physical store on the weekends, pick up a marketing books, and just read it, make notes, just keep on absorbing, like the Matrix, Keanu Reeves. I
Mhm.
was consuming all this knowledge, and then during the week I would bring it and I would literally experiment with what I had learned in the book, right? And what I realized was, marketing, especially in e-commerce at that time, there were no books on e-commerce marketing. It was all classical marketing, right? direct marketing, catalog marketing, TV marketing, infomercials, stuff like that. But I consumed all this and said, okay, I need to build this thing because it doesn't exist, right? From a time frame standpoint, google.com as a search engine was being beta tested. So that's the reference point for that, right? So I learned very quickly that in case of e-commerce, everything is numbers. So that's great. I'm a mathematician, so that's great. I can understand that, and I can turn that into marketing things that I learned traditionally, classically, that all these things, all these platforms are teaching me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I would learn it on the weekends, bring it, apply it. Whatever I learned, then I would go and relearn whatever I needed to relearn or learn more things and just continued building it out. I mean, this is how that business in 4 years, while I was learning, went from 12 million to $52 million. And I was fully responsible for all revenue from there. So from there, that was my first time doing it. And then when Jeff sold Vitamin Shop, he was the reason I was there, right? And then when he sold it, and I had been there for 4 years, I said, okay, it's time to go, right? After he left, so I left, and then I tried my luck a second time, a third time. I saw that what I was doing was, at that time I didn't call it a D method, right? But what I realized was what I was doing was I was being very methodical and looking at every dimension of the business. I was not just looking at marketing. I was not just looking at operations or the tech side of things or my team. I was looking at every aspect of it whenever I wanted, and all the successes I was gaining over the past 25 years now, right? Every one of those things had to do with not just this one magic bullet that gave you ridiculous growth. And I have had ridiculous growth with a lot of brands. Vitamin Shop being my first one was 12 to 52 million, but then later on, the roadmap for Canon was 100 million to 1 billion, right? And then on the smaller end of it, a case study that I believe it's on my website on growthbysabir.com, is our current client. It's a $1.5 million men's jewelry brand that has gone from 1.5 million stagnant for several years now and spending a ton of money to now growing. They're 6 weeks into our program. Our program is about 12 weeks with our partners. So in 12-week program, they're in the middle point right now, 6 weeks, and the business is trending over 112% right now. So that this methodology that has been crafted and refined over 25 years generates ridiculous growth and profitable growth at that,
Mm. So you've had a string. First of all, thanks for telling your backstory, going really really deep and that, and I see why you had to go deep. Because what I gathered is you're essentially very very intelligent mathematician. You're a polymath, in a sense, and you're in a way you're self-taught polymath. Whether you had university or not, or college or not, you'd have still made enormous strides with what you're doing. Just out of curiosity, what does your brother do now?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of it.
Just out of curiosity, what does your brother do now? Because you said you used to code with your brother initially.
Oh yeah, he's actually a computer scientist still. So he did not change. So,
Interesting.
but he does an incredible job of being a technical project manager for a pretty large financial firm.
Okay.
Bank of New York Mellon, I think. Bank of
Okay.
Mellon, New York, I think, is one of the largest banks in the
Okay.
world. And he implements AI, machine learning, stuff like that,
Okay.
at in the banking sector for the financial industry.
Okay. And then
So he went hardcore into technical, and he leads these projects, multi-billion-dollar projects.
Yeah.
Mine went towards this e-commerce, B2C, B2B e-commerce, industry.
And then what key books do you think in marketing were very pivotal to you and to anybody listening over that period you're really trying to turn around the vitamin company?
So that's an excellent question. Like I said, there is no magic bullet, right? I know everybody would like to get that magical book that did that worked for me, right? I can give you a list of them. Actually, I even published an article on Medium saying how certain books shaped my career and my life, right? I consume anywhere from 1 to 2 books per week, and that's my behavior. Like that's what I do, right? I devour these books, and the way I do it, it's not like I read the paperback. Sometimes I do. I like reading fiction that way, right, on paper. But most of the time, while I'm working, I'm listening to an audiobook, right? And usually I keep it on 2x because I hear a lot faster, and I consume a lot faster. So this way I can finish 1 to 2 books a week, right? And there are so many books that have shaped, and because the thing is, marketing does change. The fundamentals don't change because at the end of the day, you are marketing to humans, so it's all about human behavior, right, and human psychology. But understanding that at the fundamental level, and then the strategies related to the mechanism changes. For example, Facebook and Instagram didn't exist when Google existed at that time. When Google existed and it was burgeoning, it was not the number one player. It was Yahoo and Alta Vista at that time, right? So the platforms change. Affiliate programs, for example, has changed into influencer marketing, So the mechanism changes. However, the fundamentals of the strategies that you need to implement in your business, that doesn't change, you know.
And that's what your 8D method actually covers, which is of course we're going to jump right in. One of the things that really caught my attention was your work with Gary Vaynerchuk. How did you meet him, and what did you guys work on?
So everything, like, what I said about the power of yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at one of my junctures, I finished up a project and I didn't want to work at that time. I didn't want to work from home. So I was trying to figure out like where, it was there any kind of an office space that I can get so that I can go and work on my startup. And at that time, I was starting up an e-commerce company at that time. So I look around, and in Tribeca, there is a shared office called Sunshine Suites. I don't know if they are still around, but that back then it was a very popular place in Tribeca. So I go and meet with the founder of that Sunshine Suites. They go like, oh yeah, there are hundreds of entrepreneurs here. This is the environment. You could be part of the community. And you just pay for a desk, and we can give you internet connection and everything. You have access to all these snacks and stuff. This is way before WeWork. So this is a while before WeWork was founded. So I say, okay, sounds good. I signed the thing. I get in there. At that time, so the desk I get, because I was just starting out, so I was a one-person startup at that time. The desk I get, Gary Vaynerchuk, who I did not know who he was at that time. He was also renting space, but his startup had gone a little bit further up, and with his VaynerMedia, and he had 6 people right at that time. Only it was him, his brother, and 3 or 4 of his brother's friends. That's it. It was 6 people roughly, and they may have hired one extra person from outside, but it was just them, right? They had started this up, and then I learned about Gary Vaynerchuk from the founder of this company and other people I met who he was, right? And then his team, and mind you, at that time when I joined that community, I was one of the most seasoned entrepreneur because of what I had done in my career with internet, with e-commerce and stuff like that, right? So what people did were they were gravitating towards me to ask questions about their business and things that I could help them with and stuff like that. And just like that, I also became good friends. We would have lunch and stuff with that first 6 crew of VaynerMedia and Gary V at that time. And at that time, they were trying this thing out, and at that time, it was a novel idea to do a web-based uh, live discussion with like this, like a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
right? They were doing this over Twitter and some other platforms, and they wanted to have guests on the show. So they asked me, "Would you like to be a guest on the show and talk about e-commerce, right? And then where do you see this going? I said, yes. So like I said, the power of yes. So I said, yes, no problem. Right. And I would do that. And then I would also engage with that crew, just throwing it out there just as a favor, right? I would just do it for no reason, not necessarily for any reason. And then what happened was his agency grew. Uh, he left. I sold my company, so I left that location, and then we parted ways for like five years or something like that. And then I was doing my stint at Canon, and one day I got a call from someone that said, "Oh, we are looking for there's an agency that's looking into bringing on e-commerce as a service." And you have a very interesting background, and the founder is really interesting and he wants to get into this, right? Mind you, there weren't any e-commerce agencies at that time, right? So it's, to me, sounded very odd. So I said, who is it? Do you mind telling me who the founder is? He said, oh, Gary V, you may not know him. I said, no, I shared an office with him. I know who he is. How's Gary V? And I named some of the other people at that time, the veterans, right? The OGs from VaynerMedia. I said, I knew him when it was like 6 people company. He goes like, oh, it's 400 people now. So I said, oh, that's interesting. So why does he want to do e-commerce? And then he explained the thing. I said, okay, sounds good. Just mention my name. Say that Sabir is interested in this, in this opportunity, and let's see if we can have the next series of conversations. And that's when I went and got reacquainted with Gary V, and we co-founded VaynerCommerce. And that's what I did for about 3-4 years with him, to turn it into a global e-commerce agency. But anyone who knows me knows that I like working directly on the businesses myself, right? Either whether I own them or I work with as an advisor to businesses. But the agency model is a little different than that, even though it sounds like it's similar, but it's different, it's just that it came a point, a fork in the road where it was time for me to move on. So we acquired another agency, rebranded it as VaynerCommerce, utilized some of the services that we had actually perfected over time, and added on other services like Shopify development and stuff like that. And then time was right for me to step out and go my own way, and where I started Growth by Sabir, which is focused on taking on select clients and utilizing the 8D method to do profitable growth in a very short period of time. Because historically, that's what I've done over the past 25 years. So anywhere from the clients I've experienced through the 8D method, they have experienced 2x to 10x growth in a very short period of time. I'm talking about 12 weeks. If you think about 12 weeks, it's 1 quarter basically, right? It's 3 months. And what can you do in 12 weeks? I can tell you, you can grow your business 2x to 10x, because a lot of agencies and a lot of other people who run e-commerce channels, what they tend to do in the business is they focus on one dimension of the business, and it tends to be something like Facebook or Pinterest or TikTok or influencer marketing or something like that. But they don't look at all the 8 dimensions. When you're not looking at 8 dimensions of your business, then you cannot grow the business profitably. Then you're looking at one dimension, and then when you grow it, what ends up happening is your business goes in the red, because you didn't really fix your operating issues. You didn't fix your team. You didn't fix your content. Your storytelling is not up to par. Your brand positioning is not great. Your product pricing, you keep on couponing and promoting, right? And thinking that, if I keep on promoting, then it's race to the bottom line, basically. And the bottom line is very red, unfortunately.
Hmm. First of all, very great precursor to the 8D method. In 8 sentences, could you describe the 8D method? I mean, what are the key components in the 8D method?
Okay, so there are 8 dimensions. So let's start with the first one, right? The very first one that I tackle is site optimization, right? Performance optimization. That's the first dimension. So in that dimension, I look at and see literally from the consumer's perspective, if I were to engage with this site, would I buy, right? And and it's an eye-opening statement, right? Because most people, they believe in the mantra of the creative director, right? The creative director says, oh, because of on branding we need to do this and that and whatever, right? But the consumer doesn't really care about that. The consumer wants to engage with your brand to buy, right? Literally, these consumers have their wallets in their hand with the credit card out. They want to buy from you, and the anti-commerce team members that you have, they are working against the plan of purchase, and they end up, isolating those people so that your bounce rate increases, your conversion rate is sub 1%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing that needs to be done. That's your store, right? And if the consumer doesn't get it, and when I say get it, the attention span of the current consumer in 2024, that's the year we're in right now, right, is 1.7 seconds. That's all. Like if it's swipe to the left, swipe to the right, or swipe up, 1.7 seconds. That behavior has been perfected by Instagram Reels, by TikTok, by Amazon app. That's the reference point. That's the reference point you need to implement. And if your performance of your site and your experience does not convey your messaging and your value, and within 1.7 seconds, any number above that 1.7 seconds, you're losing, for every second, you're losing 30% conversion rate. 30%. So when you think about just looking at that dimension, and if it's fixed and cleaned up, you can get tremendous growth from fixing that first dimension to start with, right? Because everything you do, everything, whether you're asking influencers to come to your site, you're asking Google ads to send traffic to you, meta ads and Facebook and TikTok and whatever social media, whatever you're doing, at the end of the day, they show up on your site to make that purchase, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if your site is not optimized at that level, so that you keep on making your point within 1.7 seconds of attention, you're losing revenue, right? So that if you're showing a gigantic logo and it takes, I don't know, a minute to download because you want the highest res logo, your bounce rate is 99% on that site, right? So it misses the mark. So the first dimension is performance optimization, and it has to do with your website, right? There are a lot of great tools you could use. There are some of them are freely available, like GT Metrics is a great tool, right? You can pass your site through that, and then it will give you a grade, and it will tell you exactly what's wrong that you need to fix. But that's just the technical side of it. But then you have to also think about dimension number 2, which has to do with customer UX.
Sorry, just with step one, what role does mobile play in like site performance optimization,
Huge,
particularly
huge.
given?
That's why it's 1.7 seconds.
Particularly given web access speeds. Not everybody has a decent speed. Interesting. Okay, good stuff.
Yeah. So mobile, most sites, most commerce gets done on mobile. So if your web designer has a beautiful Mac, a gigantic screen Mac on their desktop, and they're designing a beautiful desktop website, it's completely irrelevant to e-commerce sites, And for a lot of e-commerce sites, 70%, a number like 70% of their revenue is coming from mobile. 30% comes from desktop. And in some other ones, it's even higher mobile commerce, right? So that if you're not designing, especially in the US, I don't know where your content gets consumed, where your listeners are, but if you are in the United States, the number one platform you need to design your mobile commerce site for is iPhone. Specifically iPhone, not just mobile phone, iPhone specifically in the US.
Mm.
If you're in Europe, you have to think about Android and Samsung as your platform, right? And some other markets, it's probably more Android because of just access to cheaper phones and stuff like that, right?
Mhm.
And more access to like Google and Google Android ecosystem and stuff like that. So you have to understand where your consumers are coming from. You need to design primarily for that device first and optimize it for that experience first. Not that your site looks amazing on desktop. You're looking at 30% of your revenue coming from your desktop. Why are you designing it for the desktop? It should be mobile first and desktop responsive,
Yeah.
the opposite terms, not like mobile responsive like a lot of people design these days,
Yeah.
and that's the wrong thing to do,
And I guess you need to also use like multi-browser testing. So there's, you could see it in multiple sort of browsers, right?
For the mobile in the US market, I would say first make sure that your site works flawlessly for Safari because it's iPhone,
Hmm.
right? Because that's the app, that's the web browser that's pre-installed on your phone, right? And then secondarily, you can test it for other popular browsers like Chrome and Brave and other flavors of Chrome-based and Firefox and stuff like that on the mobile phone. But primarily, if it's coming from an iPhone, highly likely, it's a Safari browser. So if your site is not compliant with Safari, it breaks, it doesn't pop up correctly, and things are too small, too big. You're expecting people to zoom in to look at things. Consumers get turned off of that; they move on, right? The more of those things you solve, the better that dimension is going to be.
Okay. Okay. So you're moving. I caught you off in in point one. So you're moving to point two now. In the in the 8D method.
So in the 8D method, the second one is customer UX. Customer UX is customer user experience, right? When different types of people come to your site, first of all, you have to identify who they are, right? Why are they coming to your site? Are you really giving them the user experience that is going to be conducive to them engaging with your brand, right? If you make it the same for all, you're gonna get a generic what one KPI that I really dislike in e-commerce is called conversion rate. You're gonna get a very low conversion rate. I believe in a different KPI than conversion rate, right? Because your business is better optimized using this other KPI, not conversion rate. So customer UX has to be right. You have to think about, like, let's say if you are in this example, if you're a jewelry store, right? If you're an online jewelry store for men, um, what kind of products do you sell? You sell bracelets, you sell rings, and you sell necklaces, let's say, right?
Hmm.
Are you giving, because the necklace buyer, a man who wears necklace, is a very different kind of customer than a customer who buys a ring from you. It's possible the person who buys a men's ring may not wear a bracelet or a necklace, even though it's all jewelry and that's what you make. So you have to think about, like, when people show up with different tastes and why they are there, are you really giving them that experience that's going to give them that experience that's kind of siloed within your site? If you do, then you're giving them the greatest experience possible. And if you think about that customer UX, now if you're running ads or email marketing, you could send men who like bracelets to the men's bracelet page, right? And experience. Men who like necklaces, men's necklaces, you're going to send them to the men's necklaces. Men who like rings and genuine stone, blah, 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 you're going to send them to that customer UX. So that the customer UX needs to be not to boast your brand's ego, right? Or your ego because you're the CMO, the co-founder, the founder, whatever. It's more to do with the consumer at the end of the day, right? Are you giving them the experience that they care about, right? And if you make it about their experience, then you can get conversion rates. And this is where you have to look at your product pages. Are you showing them a generic template for all of your products? Because for me, a ring could be presented very differently to the ring buyer than a necklace would be, than a bracelet would be, right? If you're selling pet food or pet products, a toy is different than a pet food, right? I mean, it sounds
Mm-hmm.
very obvious, but if you go to these sites, you don't see it. You don't see the difference between them. It's like treated like everything. Oh, why are you doing it? Oh, because Amazon does it. Well, Amazon has had a 25 plus year head start on you. You are just starting out. You need to tell your story differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but are you giving them that customer UX that's very unique so that brands like nowadays, like Sundays for Dogs, for example, does a fabulous job of story. That brings me to the third dimension, which has to do with storytelling and storytelling as a marketing dimension, right? What is your story? How is your product different? How is the founder's story different? You have to utilize storytelling in the third dimension. And when you're using that, you're doing it on your ads, you're doing it on your email marketing, you're doing it on your social media channels, anywhere that you can tell your story. You have to tell your story to make it unique and your own. And it's not always about the product. It's not always about, oh, our product has 10 more ounces of food. Okay, that's a technical detail, right? That means that, yeah, I'm saving some money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't tell me like what makes it special, right? Why buy from you? I could buy anything from Amazon. Why should I buy it from you, right? What makes your product so special? So focused on this third dimension after customer UX is marketing, but specifically storytelling as your foundation, right? Because a lot of people miss this aspect of it and they don't think it's important because they start doing price optimization, right? Buy one, get one free, 30% off, free shipping. They give the store away basically by couponing to death.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, if you spend time storytelling, maybe you don't have to do any of those things. You don't. And you
Yeah.
could only use it when you need to, when you have to do price promotion.
I often say storytelling is your ability to tell your why you're doing what you're doing. And when people understand that why, they can, justify any price points. They can, just essentially sacrifice or do anything you ask them to do because they believe in that why, and it's so important. But in back to like point two, you mentioned something. I didn't want to cut you short. You said you preferred another metric over conversion rate. What is that metric you prefer?
Yeah, so I completely do not use conversion rate at all. And coming from a 25 years ecom veteran, right?
Hmm.
Hearing that sounds very odd because every every other ecom person says conversion rate. Conversion rate is such a garbage KPI, right? Because it doesn't really tell you anything, right? So I have replaced conversion rate with session value, right? For an e-commerce site, I don't care about the conversion rate. I care about how many sessions that I get, or how much traffic, how many visitors that come to my site, right? And how much revenue did I utilize if I divide those two numbers, right? So revenue divided by number of sessions gives me the session value, right?
Hmm.
And I'll tell you why that KPI is a meaningful KPI, right? When like let's say you do that math, right? You get certain revenue and you divide it by a number of sessions you have on your site. You get a session value of, let's say, $2.50, right?
Hmm.
That means that when you bring a session to the site, it generates $2.50,
Hmm.
right? And that means that if that $2.50 goes down to $2, that means that you're bringing unqualified traffic
That's
to
right.
your site,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
And let's move that along further, right? If you take a look at all of your paid channels generate certain amount of clicks to your site, clicks, visitors, whichever one you like to use, right? And if you look at and you know your spend. So even though the platform might charge you, like a Meta Ads charges you by impression, right? It doesn't charge you by CPC. However, Google Ads charges you by CPC, right?
Hmm.
Depending on the ad units that you buy. But if you normalize that to cost per click, regardless of the channel, right? You know your cost per click is, let's say, 50 cents, right?
Mhm.
If you know that every click is going to cost you 50 cents, but every qualified session that you bring to the site is $2.50 in revenue, what is your ROAS?
$2.
No, it's 5x, right?
It's 5x. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
50 cents times 5 is
Mhm.
$2.50, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Knowing that number, you don't need to know any other numbers. If you know that number, you're going to keep on working towards that number.
That's right.
And when I said at the earlier part of this podcast, I said our clients, whether they run Amazon ads, which one of them is experiencing 10x ROAS, right? On Amazon. That's an Amazon platform, less control, right? But
Mhm.
still doing the right fundamentals of the 8D method, they're experiencing 10x ROAS, right?
Mhm.
This jewelry brand that has a Shopify store, it has grown 112%. And here's the catch: we reduced our Facebook ad spend.
Mhm.
Because everybody thinks, oh, you know what? Oh, Sabir went in there, just you doubled your Facebook ads. Yeah, that would be very lazy of me and stupid, right? I don't do stupid and lazy things. We
Mhm.
need to do the right things by the business, right?
Mhm.
So in their case, specifically during these six weeks, we actually reduced our ad spend on Facebook because why spend money if your site optimization, your customer UX, your marketing and storytelling is not set up properly, right? So
Yeah.
we spent time on these first three dimensions first, increased our conversion rate, and we said, okay, while we're working on this, we don't want to pay attention to our Facebook ads. Let's knock it down a little bit. Let's just do retargeting and just do bare minimum for bringing some traffic in, but we don't have to. We can even shut it off if we don't need to, right? Now, in these next 6 weeks, we will be talking about Google ads and optimizing meta ads properly, and Pinterest ads and TikTok ads, and looking at influencer marketing as a channel, getting better at email marketing, which we have done already in the first 6 weeks, right? And optimizing it even further moving forward, right?
Yeah.
So session value is a much better metric for e-commerce businesses. It's
On what?
not conversion rate, because
On what?
conversion rate doesn't really, there's nothing practical you could do with conversion rate.
Yeah. On what dimension do you sort of track it? Is it time based or is it channel based?
No, as we go through the um, each dimension, right?
Mhm.
We look at, are we looking at organic or are we looking at paid,
Mhm.
right? When we're looking at organic channels, we have to look at the session value by the channel, right? To see what kind of return are you getting on the session value,
Mhm.
right? For example, affiliate marketing has a phenomenal session value, right?
Mhm.
But then when you get into the holiday period, all those numbers tank because now you're paying the affiliates to throw more traffic at you, right? Because you're
Mhm.
paying for placement during the holiday seasons, for example,
Mhm.
right? So you have to be mindful of those kinds of things versus organic SEO stays pretty stable. It's profitable. Session value is pretty consistent throughout the year, unless there are drastic Google SEO algorithm changes that affects the entire product category. Other than that, massive change like that, it's pretty stable. You're getting your session value pretty consistently. So you have to keep on investing in those backlinks, doing more content, blog articles, better optimized SEO content on your site, better structure, technical SEO, stuff like that, right? You're getting a pretty consistent return on that the time you spend doing that SEO optimization, because that's where you're not spending money on. Maybe sometimes you are, but mostly you're spending time on SEO, and the cost of time you should take into consideration when you're considering your ROAS on that. But your session value is going to be the same, right?
Yeah.
To count how much time did you spend on doing the SEO. If you had to do backlinks where you paid for some placements or guest posts, or you paid a third party agency to do SEO for you and stuff like that, that's your cost for that channel, even though it's technically free, right?
Okay.
Email marketing, the same thing. So you have to look at uh, organic channels first, and then you look at your ad spend by channel, right? There is no generic number you should be looking at for your business ever, right? This is one of the reasons I hate conversion rate, right? Because everybody says, "Oh, my site's conversion rate is less than 1%." When we do this 8D method, are we going to improve the conversion rate? That's such a generic number; it has no meaning. I would rather look at every channel and see how we can improve the session value of that channel, and then conversion rate is a derivative number, and you can look at your Google Analytics or Shopify Analytics or whatever to see how it improved. But it's a derivative number. It's meaningless.
Makes sense. So we talk about site performance optimization, customer research, or creating unique product UX, storytelling. What is number 4? What's number 4D in the 8D method?
So number 4 is product positioning and your brand positioning, right? So now we looked at the customer, we looked at your site, we looked at your marketing and storytelling, and we looked at, we have to look at your product, and we looked at your customer, right? The next place that you need to pay attention to is your product positioning, which also is associated with your brand positioning, right? For the same product, there are 1,000 variations in the market, right? If you doubt my statement, just go on Amazon, put in your product category search term, and you'll see thousands and thousands of competitors, right? It's not like you have 3 competitors, you have thousands of competitors at the product level, right? So what are you doing for your product that is positioned differently for your product specifically, right? Part of it could be technicals. Your vitamin has better ingredients, right? It's organic. It has XYZ ingredient. It went through, the packaging is sustainable. All of those things count, because today's consumer is not just doesn't want to just take the pill and put it in their mouth, or they don't want to take a lotion and put it on their face. They want to know how it was made, where it came from, who made it, what are the ingredients, is it ethical? All of those things matter, right? So from your product positioning perspective, so when we get to this 5th dimension, you have to position every product for success. What are you doing to position it correctly? And then are you doing things to ask those customers that you acquired and they bought this product, are you asking them to do things for this product on your behalf? And what are those things? Reviews, testimonials, video testimonials, pictorial testimonials, textual testimonials and reviews. Whether you're selling on Amazon or on your Shopify site or WooCommerce or whatever, is that part of your product journey, right? Just like we talked about site journey, customer journey, marketing and storytelling journey, right? We have to talk about the product journey. In the product's life, what things are you doing? Are you setting it up for success so that you can get the right reviews? Is everybody happy? And are you listening also? That's really important with reviews and questions and answers and complaints that customers tell you. Are you really paying attention to that? And are you really making the changes that they're telling you that there's a fault? For example, let's say you sell tomato sauce, right? And you selling it, you're getting mixed reviews. You're getting people who got it and they used it for their pasta, they love it, right? This is their choice now. Your tomato sauce is the best. They will go out of their way and pay for shipping and handling to buy your tomato sauce than to go to Whole Foods or Stop and Shop or whatever market. They would rather buy yours because it tastes amazing, because everything is made out of organic tomatoes, and every tomato was kissed by a fairy, right? So whatever those selling points are, right? However, now you get a mix of people that are telling you, yeah, the tomato sauce is good, but I bought 3 bottles and one of them, the lid came off and it was all over the box, right? They're going out of their way to tell you what you need to fix with your product.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of businesses, this sounds very obvious, and it's not a tomato sauce. It could be a piece of jewelry. It could be a shoe. It could be your size 6 woman's dress is not really size 6, right? they're really telling you these things, right? But a lot of people, they look at 4.5 stars. Do I have 4.5 stars on my ratings? How many reviews? Oh, we need to get the number of reviews up. But they're not paying attention to the content of those reviews, where customers are really working for you and telling you, they're not only buying the product, they're telling you what's wrong, right? And if you're not, and a lot of businesses are not listening, unfortunately.
Yeah, I, I,
That's
I,
that's the product journey.
I
Go ahead,
often
Kunli.
find I often find like the reason for this is two pronged. One, there's the like operations or even product and operations are one and the same in my opinion. Do not listen. They've not put a feedback loop to customer service and marketing that essentially sort of gives them that feedback. This is what our customers are saying. You know, you're really communicating that customer cry towards actually improving the product, and feedback. Every feedback is good feedback. You could always, put that to iterate. And the other thing is the nature of e-commerce. It's the physicality of e-commerce. So let's say, for instance, you were, you'd had your consignment for the quarter. You brought in 50,000 units of a product, or you brought in X amount of products into your warehouse or your fulfillment center. The objective of e-commerce sell through. Now, if those products or some of those products have some fundamental issues that are going to essentially cause issues with customers, they still have to sell through commercially, because that's what's going to fund the next inventory turnaround that could potentially lead to the to those changes. Question is, like, what are you seeing? How are you seeing really good companies really close that loop and take on feedback, as well as how do you handle stock that may have some fundamental issues? Do you destroy it, or what do you do in that scenario?
So, Kunli, what you did is jump to dimension number 8, which is
Okay,
team.
fair enough.
So, when we get to that 8th dimension, right? Well, one of the things, I know that we're jumping. It's fine because you asked the question, so I'll
Mhm.
answer it, right?
Sure.
The 8th dimension is your team. And when I say team, I don't mean your full-time employees. Your team is your agency, the people you hired on Fiverr, Upwork, LinkedIn, freelancers that work for you, people who come in, your cousin, your wife, your husband that comes and helps you over the weekend. That's your team, right? Whether you pay them, don't pay them, or pay them on a W-2, or you pay them on a 1099 as an independent contractor, doesn't matter to me, right? Or an agency. You may have hired an agency to work for you. When you have the team, right? The team, it's under your leadership, right? You're the owner of the company, right? You're the owner of the company. When I say owner, it doesn't mean that your name is on the equity thing. You could be the CMO, right? You could be the CEO, meaning that you don't own the company, you are hired as a CEO, right? At the end of the day, building the right communications. And in case of e-commerce, and actually, an online blog had interviewed me several years ago about fighting fraud online, which fighting fraud is a huge issue with e-commerce sites, right? And I had given, one of the directions that I had given there is communication. Number one thing fraud happens is lack of communication in e-commerce companies, right? And that's a real practical
It's true.
issue, right, in e-commerce.
Hmm.
Fraud is number one issue in e-commerce. Like, you could be selling to fraudulent credit cards and or shipping and rerouting, and there's so many things. I could write a book on fraud on e-commerce. So, but the reason that happens, it has to do with lack of communication, right? If in your company, let's say this issue is not really a big issue when you are 1 to 2 person company and then you have a bunch of freelancers working for you, right? Because you're controlling the communication, right? Everybody, all the buck stops at you, right? But when that group grows to 15 to 20 people, it's no longer that. It's like you have several chiefs in there: chief operating officer, chief financial officer, chief marketing officer, so on, right? Chief technology officer, right? And each one of them have their own kingdoms, right? And then the person who runs marketing has some issue with the person who's running customer service, and they don't want to talk to each other, and they want to throw each other under the bus, right? That's just corporate politics, right? So as a leader, as the owner of the company, it's your job to make sure that you weed out those issues first, because that's cancer for your company. That's cancer. If you don't weed that out, no matter how great your product is, you are bound to have serious issues and pockets of issues or tremendous issues in your business. So that eighth dimension being team and communication being at its core, you really need to pay attention to that, right? I'll give you a gigantic example, right? And this example comes from Vitamin Shop. So the marketing team was told by merchandising that a amazing book has come out, and the publisher has given us this book to be included with every order, and it's a very popular book. Mind you, the book was not a small paperback. It was one of those gigantic physician's guide, whatever, to natural alternative, whatever.
Okay.
Gigantic book. Most of our orders at Vitamin Shop were 3 to 5 bottles of vitamins, different types of vitamins, right? So the box was this big, right?
Mm-hmm.
So merchandising made the deal with the publisher to get the book. They told marketing that the marketing, go ahead and this is, promote it, promote the hell out of it, because we have thousands of books we can give away and we can increase our orders. Merchandising did its job, amazing. Marketing did its job, amazing. The two people that were not told were customer service, that this promotion was going on, right? And the other person that should have been at the forefront before marketing would have been operations. Because we didn't even have the boxes to put the book in there and then put the vitamins in there, because the book was gigantic book. What do you think happened to the shipping cost that month?
Just blew up. It was huge.
Huge cost, because it's an additional shipment.
Yeah.
For
Different
every
dimension.
order that qualified. So from KPI standpoint, we had tremendous wins on merchandising, marketing. When it came to, like, where's my book? Because some packages were lost. Where's my book? That increased customer service costs. And shipping cost went up and double the labor in the order fulfillment area. Right? So even though you have successes in parts of your team, right? That communication is critical. I mean, nowadays you have tools like Slack where people are supposed to talk to each other or talk to each other, because there are so many remote teams now, right?
Yeah.
But leadership still is needed in managing those teams, so that it's not siloed kingdoms that are running within your company, right?
Yeah.
That there are free-flowing conversations that are happening in that eighth dimension.
Yeah. I often liken Slack as a baseline conversation layer, communication layer. But as you said, with critical decisions at a leadership level, you require another level above Slack to make those decisions and essentially effect what actions need to be taken so leaders can absorb it and essentially use Slack as potentially the medium to alert the rest of the team. But I think Slack can be overstretched as a channel if every single decision is passed through it. When there's no decision hierarchy, it's just tougher to run a company, right?
Yeah, you listen, you cannot shirk your responsibility as a leader by pointing to the tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
You still need to do your huddles with Zoom or Slack huddle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Microsoft Teams or WebEx, whatever flavor of in person like this
Mm-hmm.
that you could do. That doesn't go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have remote teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's in person, right? What are the meaningful one meeting of the week or two meetings of the week that you should do in person, have to do? And then what are the follow-ups you could do through Slack so that things get done faster, better? Oh, I finished this thing. Can some of you guys go and test it to see if it works? That you could do in Slack, right? But making critical decisions, you still need to do that face to face, right? So that you can have that dialogue, that analog, right? It's not transactional, chat in a Slack, right? It's an analog human to human discussion about the challenges and stuff like that, and so that you can all be in the know, so that as the owner of the company, you're setting the tone and you're setting that pace as for your team. And then even if you have lieutenants or majors in your team, all the C-level executives that report into you, or directors or VPs, whatever title you give them, they need to do the same thing to lead their teams also, right? And then
Absolutely.
if you have this unified conversation on a weekly basis, that's how you win. When there's a lack of that communication, or if a leader doesn't carry through that communication, that's when you start running into issues. And you know that, oh, this company is making amazing products, but why is their marketing so horrible, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this product does these amazing things, but they never tell me that these things could be done with the product as a consumer, right? So that's when you have those kind of questions about a business, when you're evaluating it, you're doing your case study or learning or auditing it or
Mm-hmm.
just learning from it, right? When you see those gaps, typically it has to do with a communication gap in that organization, right? And the faster you could find those communication gaps and you find out what's causing it, you need to address it. You can do training, you could do things like that, but sometimes maybe the person just doesn't have the DNA to make that happen. In that
Yeah.
case, you have to make the critical decision of releasing them to the community of the world and finding another superstar to add to your team.
Yeah. Sometimes it may be a talent problem. Okay, let's jump right back into the list. Site-to-site performance optimization, customer research, storytelling. We had brand and product positioning, and then we've covered 8, which is team. What is number 5?
So number 5 is actually number 6. We covered five dimensions. So number
Yeah.
6 has to do with pricing. So as you
Mm-hmm.
can see, pricing in my book is really further out in a dimension, right? If you can identify all the things that need to be fixed in the prior dimensions, then you can literally dictate your price, right? And when it has to do with price, you have to take into account promotion also, right? Because that's your ultimate price that the market will bear, right? Whatever the market will bear based on all the other optimizations that you have done, and they're willing to pay you for it. That's great. I'll give you an example, right? Let's say we are selling the same product, same exact product, right? Exactly the same, right? Not that it's from two different brands, exact copy, right? One sells it for $10, right? And that's like the cheapest price, but you get it in 6 weeks, right? And there are a lot of complaints about, even in 6 weeks, you got the smaller size. So it's not, they're being dishonest, right? Versus somebody who sells the same product for $15, right? $5 more, which is a lot expensive, right? 10 versus
50% more.
15.
Yeah.
But they send it to you within 3 days across the US, right? 3 days, you receive it, and they have fabulous reviews about how great they are, how great their customer service is, and stuff like that. One has invested in customer service, it has invested in truth and storytelling and on their branding. People are willing to pay for the same product, they're willing to pay $5 more,
Mm-hmm.
right? Versus the one that was for $10, and the customers who fell for it are really sorry that they did, because they lost their $10.
Mm-hmm.
One, they didn't get the right product, they lost their $10. So you can see that it could be the same product, but if you optimize the other dimensions of the business, you could ask for more money, and consumers are willing to pay for that, right? And if you're in a commodity business, that's what also sets you apart. It's your experience, right? Does Amazon sell anything different than anything that Walmart or Sam's Club or Costco or anybody else sells? The answer is no. It's the same commodity products. Why is Amazon the number one e-commerce company in the world?
It's just customer centric. It does what it says, typically faster than
And they're
when it plays
marketing
it.
it as a label too. You know what that label is?
Prime.
Prime. When you hear Prime, and 72% of US households know what Prime is, because that's how many have it. They know that when I place an order, I'll either get it overnight or, worst case scenario, within 1 or 2 days. And it gives me music, it gives me movies, it gives me all these other benefits, ancillary benefits that were added on over the years, right? And it's a branded experience. Prime is a branded experience. What are you doing to your brand to build that stuff out? So when the question of pricing comes in, that can you price it in a way that it's not always race to the bottom line, right? Which tends to be very red. I mean, if you see a lot of companies during the holiday season, they show amazing numbers, right? Black Friday was great, Cyber Monday was great, Cyber Week was great, right? Our Christmas holiday season was amazing. Come January, U.S. retail bankruptcies skyrocket,
Hmm.
right? That's a real indicator of how horrible those companies were being run.
Yeah, the unit economics was just not
So
right. Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
that's why you have to do those other things. Does it require time? Yes. Can it do it fast? Yes. I've been doing it for 12 weeks at a time and turning these companies around. Some of them were turned around, like Ashley Stewart, for example, in my history, was a bankrupt company. And when I inherited it, it was a $3 million company as an e-commerce company. They had retail stores too. $3 million. Within 2 years of this continuous improvement on a daily basis, in 2 years, that $3 million channel went to $30 million. $3 million was at 30% gross margin to $30 million at 65% margin. So not just top line growth, overall profitable growth in 2 years. But now this model has been perfected, and we do this every 12 weeks.
So what is the second? What's number 7 after price and promotion?
So number 7, because we are in e-commerce and the world runs on tech and computers, it has to do with your tech stack, right? So number 7 has to do with your tech stack. That if your tech is not, actually, I'm sorry, you were right. I was my number was a little bit off, right? We have one more dimension besides team. So your tech could be a detriment to your business, right? There are businesses that ask for my advice, and when I go through the evaluation and audit of their business, I find out that all the other dimensions, it's fabulous. Like they are working fine, right? Can we improve it? The answer is absolutely yes. You can always improve a business, right? But what I find out is mishmash spaghetti of connections, integrations over time, because different people touch the tech stack over time, right?
Mm.
There are e-commerce businesses today still. They have a staff of, I don't know, 20 people in tech working on coding everything. Why are you doing that? Like, does Shopify not do for you what you want to do? And then, believe it or not, more than 90% of those, the answer there, more than 90%. There are some odd examples. Like I would give it 5 to 10%. There are odd examples. No, Shopify cannot do certain things, right? meaning extreme customization and personalization, maybe, right? It may not be able to do. But for the other 90% of the businesses where they have coded everything from the ground up on a Magento using C++, Python, or whatever flavor that tech people really like, they build it based on that, so that every time they try to do a promo, the site breaks, the performance is horrible, it takes forever to launch features on the site, so that the marketing is crippled basically because of it, right? So it's touching so many of other dimensions. The tech is negatively affecting all these other dimensions. Then you need to figure out, like, you need to swallow the hard pill and say, we need to move off of this thing, because the tech stack is actually killing our company,
Yeah.
right? And in some cases, unfortunately, what I see is that the person who's running tech has ulterior motive, meaning that they have a company they invested in or whatever overseas, and because it sounds cheap to have a bunch of engineers working for you at a hugely discounted price, that sounds like a bargain. It's actually not a bargain. It's actually detrimental to the company,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would rather hire an agency, a Shopify agency, to rebuild that entire site, and the budget for that would be cheaper than my expenses related to operating that tech and managing that tech, and paying all this payroll and all of these other things. Also touches team in that scenario, your tech team also, right? All of those things, the cost of it would be a fraction of it when you move it to a platform that's you don't have to worry about hosting. Shopify does that, right? You don't have
Yeah.
to worry about all these payment connections and stuff like that. There are connections pre-built, and if you are being affected, that means that thousands of other merchant sites are being affected, and everybody is screaming at Shopify and at Authorize.net, at Stripe, and all of these platforms, right? So there are things that may have made sense, and I built a lot of it back in the 90s. In 2024, it doesn't make sense for you to do that. So if your tech stack, you have to always evaluate once a year or twice a year. You have to evaluate and see, even the decision I made in 2023, is it still relevant from a tech standpoint, or did a startup get funded that has a magical solution for me that's going to solve time, cost, operations, whatever? Is it better, right? Because the thing is, the thing that keep on investing in, you're going to keep on doing that over the next 5-10 years. But if you bite the bullet and make the change right now, you may not need to. So tech is a huge dimension there, right? If your tech is not right, when I come in and ask you to make site optimizations in the first dimension, and you're going to give me a timeline like, oh, that's going to take 2.5 weeks, and we can only work on 5 things, the answer is, you know what? In Shopify, you could have done it in the next hour, and we could start getting data and see how this change is going to positively affect our business and collect revenue at the same time, right? When I
Yeah.
say Shopify, Shopify obviously is one of the most popular platforms, but you could be on other platforms that give you similar type of features that are pre-built, that you don't have to engineer yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Focus on the other aspects of the AD method. Okay, so you said we missed one. What's the one
So
more?
the seventh dimension is logistics.
Mm,
So your logistics, you got everything right. You have your team, you have your marketing, your product, customers, pricing, everything is perfect, right? Brand positioning, everything is fine, right? Everybody's holding hands, everybody is celebrating. Now it comes to logistics. Are you getting, so when I say logistics, it's a lot of different functions. It's not just order fulfillment, right? Or 3PL, which is third party logistics, that handles your orders after you sell on Shopify, or if your inventory runs out and you send it to Amazon FBA, right? If your partner, or you're doing it yourself, you know, if your logistics is not optimized, it doesn't matter that marketing hired Sabir to go in and do his 8D method, and now you're getting double the orders. Your logistics partner, could be your own warehouse, they didn't increase their people on the ground to pick, pack, and ship. If it's robotics, their robotics cannot handle double the capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So logistics is critical from an order fulfillment side when all of these things are optimized. But part of that logistics is also, can your manufacturing plant generate twice the volume now or 3 times the volume? Some of our clients in 12 weeks got 6.5x growth. Can they generate so much more clothing, so much more shoes, so much more whatever widgets that you're selling, right? The logistics part of it needs to be done, especially if you're in the custom business. Do you have enough people to put that custom thing together if you're getting more custom orders, because now you're getting double the volume, right? So your logistics need to be optimized also. So as we optimize these businesses across each one of these dimensions, we are very mindful of logistics and customer service as part of it too, right? That making sure that they are up to par, meaning that your manufacturing can generate more products, your inventory could be checked in on time, that if you're running out of inventory and you have to keep, like, now, in order to have savings, you have to keep like 90 days of inventory in order to get different levels of prime, even with Amazon FBA, right? You have to be mindful of those things. Can you send over 90 days volume while you're selling on your own website, right? Because you have to manage different channels. So logistics is really, really critical. And then you have to go all the way back to your supply chain. Do they have double the capacity? For example, if you're in the supplements business, right, you can grow only so many trees that you can cultivate the ingredients you need from those trees, right?
Sure.
There are so many fishes in this ocean, right? And you cannot overfish. There are legal restrictions against that, right? So even if you are doubling or tripling or 10xing your business, are the capabilities there behind the scenes, or are you selling vapor on this side and 10xing the business, and you didn't think about the fact that you needed to have finished inventory to fulfill those orders? And in fact, you needed to have more people, more robotics, or whatever in order to fulfill those orders for it to go out, even if your warehouse is full of products, right? So you have to be mindful of the seventh dimension being logistics, that you have to be lock and step from every one of these things. So when you think about your business, a lot of people, a lot of business owners, what they do is, this is where they fail, right? They look at, oh, my issue is a Facebook issue, right? I'm getting the traffic. I don't know if my ad is right, this, that. Let me go get an agency, somebody who's a guru at that, right? And they do that, and then they don't get the results because they're not looking at the full picture. What I do, that's why I don't call myself an agency. I don't call myself a consultant. I'm an advisor, right? I take a step back. I look at the entire business and look at exactly what's wrong with the entire business, not just looking at one dimension, one element of a dimension, and say, oh, we need to improve our ROAS on Facebook. Not even Facebook. It's like ROAS on Facebook. That's looking at a drop of water from an ocean, and deciding what the ocean is made up of, and you're missing the whole point, and you have to look at the whole picture. And the 8D method looks at that whole picture in a 12-week period. It is a very intense 12-week boot camp. And every week there is deliverables related to the dimension that need to be implemented ASAP. So literally, I become in charge of that company for 12 weeks. And every week those things are being given, and the owner takes it and gets it done. And if my clients don't have the right resources, and most of them don't know everybody, and the typical question is, Sabir, do you have a guy that can do XYZ, right? The answer is always yes, because I have a network of really amazing experts that I have personally vetted, who are incredible at executing the 8D method, that part of the 8D method, that specific part that they excel at. So I make the introductions, they get it done. So that during those 12 weeks, they typically work with the client. And then after the 12 weeks, if they like each other, they can continue their contract and agreement till they reach a certain goal, or they keep going, right?
Yeah.
So but I become the advisor to that business for those 12 weeks. And for clients that want, and I have had many clients that stick with the plan because they see the value in the, not only the strategy, but the execution is so on point, right? It's laser surgery, not butchery, right? That it's so much laser surgery that they see it, they continue on. And I've had clients for 3-4 years that have continued on. They started as an 8D method client. The program is called Rapid 2X. They started there, but they continued on for 3-4 years now.
Speaking of logistics, what are your thoughts and experience with pre-order and back order experiences, particularly when you're scaling and really and truly you're just not able to meet up with the demand, the other aspects of the AD method have sort of delivered.
So at the end of the day, it's managing expectations, right? It's managing customer expectations, communication, setting up the expectation ahead of time. For example, if you think about it, you know what's a pre-order? The entire model is based on pre-order Kickstarter programs, right?
Mhm.
With a Kickstarter, the person idea is a figment of their imagination, and they recruit people to be part to realize and make this imagination, figment of their imagination, into reality, right?
Yeah.
And then they share their journey through Kickstarter, and then you get a product. That's managing and communicating uh, that that journey, right? So people are willing to pay ahead of time, 3 months at a time. I'm a Kickstarter fan. I actually have bought cameras and stuff like that, and audio, headsets and all sorts of things like that through Kickstarter programs, because that's what I liked doing, right? So when you take a lesson from that for your business, when you're doing pre-order, are you setting the right expectations, or you did not really communicate that well? And it's not the first time communication, it's ongoing communication of why they're on this journey of pre-order with you, right? And I'm
Mhm.
not talking about a 30-day pre-order, I'm talking about 3-month pre-order, right? So it's matter of how are you generating that, how are you building that up, right? And managing that expectation for the pre-order. The same applies to back order, right? If you say that you have limited quantity, you have 1,000 that's available, but if it runs out, then you're going to go on a back order. A lot of sites and businesses, they don't communicate that well. So what happens? Your chargebacks go up, your refund rate goes up, your reviews and ratings tank, right? All those things are connected. And at the end of the day, you could have saved all of those things by communicating, right? By communicating it on the product page, by communicating it with a follow-up email, SMS, through your social media. And again, goes back and touches the dimension of storytelling and marketing, right? You have to storytell. It's not just that before you try to get them to buy your product, you have to do it also after they bought your product, because they're on a pre-order or a back order, right? That needs to be there, right? The more you communicate, the more you manage the expectations there and make it convenient for them to, like, look, if you want to bail out, it's fine. There are other people who want to take your spot, right? There are some events like Comic-Con, right? I don't know if you're a Comic-Con fan, Kunli, right?
Heard of it, but not. I've only attended one or mini Comic Con in Oxford here, but nothing to not a fan.
So one of the great things that they do is they actually send you an email. You bought a ticket, right? Which is very hard to find for Comic-Con,
Mhm.
especially in New York and San Diego, right? These are very popular destinations for Comic-Con. So you buy your ticket, you bought it, you have it on you. They send you an email telling you that, hey, there are some people that we already sold out. If you want a refund, if you cannot make it to the event, we can give you a refund, so we can give it to other people. Your money is already in the bank. They're telling
Yep.
you, we'll give you a refund to get out if you're not committed to coming, so that somebody else who is a bigger fan than you will come,
Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
they are willing to pay for it, right?
Yep.
That just builds up that level of you already bought it.
With or without your mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we'll do it. We'll do it anyway.
Yep.
So it's been, every single aspect of this interview surpassed my expectations. So I was really, really, really had high expectations for this, but yeah, it really surpassed my expectations. So I just want to express my gratitude for you coming in to share the methodology, for you sharing your story, your backstory, 25 years, worth of just experience in e-commerce. Now, with what you're doing in growth by Sabir and the program, you have a rapid 2x program, which I believe is a 12-week program, and then you have a hyper 10x program. How can people find out more? I believe your website is called Growth. What are the nuance? What should they expect when they reach out to you?
Well, first of all, thank you, Conley, for having me. I had a fabulous time on your show. So, what I would recommend for your audience members is to, if they're interested in learning more about it, this upcoming Tuesday, I'm doing a webinar that they can register for free, right? It's a workshop actually. I don't even call it a webinar. Most people call it webinar, but it's a workshop. So if they go to Growth by Sabir, my name is spelled Sabir. So growthbysabir.com /workshop. So if they go there, they will be sent over to the workshop registration. It's free. And it's upcoming Tuesday. I am running a free workshop where I'll go through this in more detail, and they could find out more. They can learn more about the case studies. I take a deeper dive into the case studies also, so that they can see that if this is for them. Because I don't run an agency, it is very limited to highly qualified businesses that I work with. Right, I personally work with them. Right, and this Rapid 2X program is a mastermind that we are launching very soon. That will be that will bring in a group of like-minded entrepreneurs who are like type A players, highly motivated to grow their business, and they have the right product market fit, so that they can, if they attend the workshop, they will learn more about it, and then they could contact, and apply for the program to see if they're a good fit, and if they are, then they can start in the workshop and spend the next 12 weeks. It's going to be I have a fabulous time during those 12 weeks, but people are a little bit of in a shock in the first few weeks until they get used to my pace, right? Because they've never worked on their business at this pace, you know. But it's exciting, and what I can tell you is our clients consistently say that, in the first 2 3 weeks was adjustment period for them
Mhm.
to get used to the pace, but once they got the pace, then they're on it. Because what makes it exciting is they see results. They see
Yeah,
it directly on their Shopify, on their Amazon seller account.
yeah,
They
yeah.
they see it. So when they see it, and how do they see it? They're seeing the business grow 30%, 40%, 50%, 70%, 100%. They surpass 100%. They see their average orders going up. They're seeing their return on advertising spend on Google and Facebook and Amazon ads going up. That's exciting. As a business owner, when you see those metrics go up and you see your business growing, and it's not like stagnant like it has been for years now, right? Or a year or two or five. We have had some clients that their business has been stagnant for 10 years, and they come to us and they start growing. When they see that excitement is revived. So
Absolutely.
growthbysabir.com /workshop, attend the free workshop, see if it's for you, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's open to both marketplace merchants and D2C merchants. It really doesn't matter, right?
No, if they're in the e-commerce business, it really doesn't matter. I helped launch several of the categories for Amazon, so I've been an OG on Amazon also. So
It's incredible,
yeah,
incredible.
it doesn't matter. I mean, we have current clients that multiple clients that are they are native to Amazon selling only, right? So they don't even have a Shopify site. And we have clients that are Shopify only, and we have
So, but
clients that
it's
are
been an
multi-channel.
absolute pleasure
They sell
having
on multiple
you on
channels,
on the
not just
podcast.
Amazon and
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
there was a bit of an overlap, but no, I was saying it's an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast, and thank you for turning up.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time, Kunle. I really appreciate you having me as a guest on your show, and looking forward to hearing the feedback from your audience and from your listeners.
Incredible. Cheers.
Cheers.